Time now for the voice of the land on the Big Play Network with your hosts, Kevin Arnold and Always Positive Jay.
It is time to welcome our guest of the evening. Mike McFadden is joining us at Mutt Guru on Twitter. Also, you can find his fishing channel on YouTube. Let's Go Fishing on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to that, just like Voice of the Land podcast, while you're over there and watching our show. Once you're done, head on over to Let's Go Fishing. Mike, thank you so much. A Cleveland fan yourself, thank you so much for taking some time out to join us here tonight.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for having me so much. I appreciate the invite. And, born and raised Canton, Ohio boy here, so you guys know where my loyalties lie.
Absolutely. We can see it behind you. That is one heck of a man cave. I'm sure that there's much more around you, too, that we can't see, right?
A lot of stories back here. A lot of stories.
I want one of those floating helmets so bad. I always see it on the other guy, Big Play Dave's show all the time. I'm like, man, I really need one, but I'm pretty sure my cats would just maul that thing every day.
Yeah, I have to keep mine away from it. Big shout out to Dave at Big Play and the hover helmet guys for that thing, man. It is one of the prized possessions of the office.
Now, you got clothes on the Big Play Network, you said, or on their webpage, correct?
Yeah, it is. So if you head over to the Big Play store, I got the Let's Go Fishing stuff right there.
Cool.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I do see a lot of pops behind you. I've kind of become somewhat of a collector of pops. Do you collect a lot of those, or is there something back there that we see that you tend to collect more than the others?
Yeah, so it's light. It's a light collection. I'm not like some of these guys that have walls and walls and walls. So I've been able to whittle the collection down to just, fine tune it basically, just like a half dozen of my favorites basically. But I'm just a big kid, guys. So I got
see
a lot
the
of toys that I
Stormtroopers
can't
helmet
let
in the
go,
background. I'm like, dude, I want to go over to Mike's house and play.
Dude, I got the full Vader helmet back here, and
awesome.
I live stream on Twitch. And if they build up enough channel points, I'm forced to wear the Vader helmet while I game.
Awesome.
So that's the thing.
Is that hard to game in? Like when you have to put that on, like how is it designed, and like how easy is it to kind of see through and get what you need to done for the stream?
Not good.
It's not. It's a three-piece outfit, and it's impossible, and that's part of the fun for sure.
Yeah, at the end of the show, we're definitely going to have to talk some Star Wars with you and have some fun with you on that subject for sure. But we are
Awesome,
here.
dude.
Kevin has never gone fishing in his life. When he told me that, I was like, all right, I got to reach out to my dude Mike, and he's going to fix him up real good here.
So let's reset first before we get some advice from one of the experts out here. We've kind of been talking about summer things that we want to do, and I mentioned it either in a break or on the show that the two goals I have this summer are to hit an actual golf ball on an actual golf course, so start to learn to play the game of golf, because I've always wanted to take that up, and to actually cast a reel and go fishing this summer, like actually get out on a boat and go fishing, because my family never did anything like that, didn't really have the means to do that. My wife and her family have done that in the past, so that I do have better connections now to do that. But I got to ask you, Mike, as a beginner or someone that's never really done that, gone fishing, like what's the beauty of it, and what's the thing to look for as you get started?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think you hit on the first major step in what you just talked about, and that's just getting out and doing it. I mean, it's very simple, it takes a lot to just, break through some of those beginner fears, where do I go? What do I do? And so you have to set some of those aside and Nike, just do it sometimes, and, I think if you're really deciding to get into it as a hobby and a sport, there's a certain commitment there, right? There's some things that you can do that are kind of some easy steps along the way that when you're first getting into it, find your local bait shops, visit your local bait shops. I think listening is a big thing. Listening to the people that do know what they're doing, and what it is like, I can't tell you exactly what to do at your spots up there. So you got to find that local knowledge, and that's anywhere you go, right? You have to kind of,
like there's certain poles for certain kind of fishing. Like if you want to go bass fishing, you're going to get a smaller pole than if you're going to go walleye fishing, correct?
I mean, you can spend as little or as much as you want to on a fishing pole.
I got a buddy
it's one of those things.
Yeah, he goes off the rails with his spending on poles, probably like you do, but
Oh, I have walls and walls. My wife really gets down on me. I have fishing rods hanging from the ceiling, over the windows, rod racks full of them, and it's like you said. There's a different tool for every job, basically. And that's one of the things I talk about commitment. It's like, are you going to go to Walmart and lightly invest in going fishing for the weekend, or are you going to be like, man, are you going to go out there and you really want to get some great catches and like take it seriously as a hobby? You got to invest a little bit in some good gear, for sure, for sure.
Now, I mean, I guess speaking of Walmart stuff, I mean, my wife and I finally bought bikes today, and we had to end up going to Walmart to like find anything because there's like none available right now. But
Yeah.
I mean, getting the right equipment, what is kind of been for you, kind of where you started to where you are now, like what has, I guess, worked best for you in general? Like Jay said, there are different poles for different fishing that you might go do, but what's kind of been that go-to element for you when you go out and you need to get some new gear or replenish your gear?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Canton, Ohio, bass fishing up there, and it was Abu Garcia and Shakespeare and Ugly Sticks for the win, absolutely up there. And I don't mean to really bring Walmart down, but when you get into some saltwater fishing down here, it becomes super specialized.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about fighting 100-pound fish that acts like a largemouth bass. So as I tell a lot of the people I tell go fishing, to catch some of these fish, 1,000 things have to go right in a row, and you can get to number 950 and lose the fish. You know what I mean? And so the tackle is just one of those things that you just want to get right and not have to worry about it. So I look to things and the brands that I really look for. There's no sponsorship here, by the way. I wish there was. I wish they would pay me to say this stuff. But Penn, Shimano. These are some of the two of the big standbys that I always go with, for sure. Whether that's reels, whether that's rods, they usually do combinations, things like that. And then the other thing I don't chintz on is lines. Line, you get the good line and not the cheap line, for sure.
Now, like test pound for like line and stuff, like you're using obviously a much stronger than we're going to use for anything pretty much in Lake Erie. And what do you think, like, what's the difference between that, if you're explaining that to Kevin and everybody listening that doesn't understand? Like, what would you want, let's say, like, if you're going bass fishing compared to you're going tarpon?
For sure. And it's kind of almost the opposite of the way you would think it would be. I know a lot of bass fishermen that use very, very heavy braid line, what's called braid line. So to break it down really quick for the people that don't know what we're talking about, there's three different kinds of line that are prevalent, and that's monofilament, which is your regular clear line that you see up in most fishing. Then there's braid, which is kind of like a finely braided woven line that's super, super strong, that's come on really as of late and is super popular. And then fluorocarbon, which is kind of an upgraded monofilament that's invisible in the water that we use down here in saltwater fishing a lot. But you'd think like, okay, so these bass and things, we'd use light line. These guys are using super, super heavy braided line because they're dealing with structure. Whether it's downed limbs, whether it's they're throwing into heavily weeded areas and trying to pull these fish out. I actually down here in saltwater fishing really like going with light tackle for the sport of it, right? So I'm using 20-pound test to try and catch these 100-pound tarpon. Of course, I have a leader that's like a 50 to 80-pound leader. When I say leader, it's a stretch of line attached to the line on my reel to give me some shock absorption and whatnot. So it's kind of the opposite of what you think, right? I use some pretty light stuff down here when you would kind of compare, but when we go for the big bottom fishing or the like shark fishing or things like that, we definitely load up for sure. 100-pound braid. 100-pound line, top to bottom.
How big are the hooks
stuff,
for a shark?
sure.
If you could like show us on your camera, like.
Oh man, a 10-0 circle hook. I wish I had one. It's definitely like as big as you can make a C with your fingers, for sure.
What's the do you know like the biggest fish, like heaviest fish or biggest fish you've ever had the fortune of catching?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. We talk about these tarpon, which are like a prehistoric. A lot of people use minnows up north for bass. If you could think of a minnow that's 200 pounds, a prehistoric 200 that comes up out of the water and jumps out of the water and tries to then that's a tarpon. That's one of my favorite fish to fight right there. And like I said, everything has to be perfect. But I've tangled with some big sharks too, 400 pound sharks before, which are insane, absolutely insane.
So like my dream is to catch like a huge shark. So that when people in Ohio are like, oh, look at this bass I caught, I'm like, yeah, I use that as bait to catch this mother. Like, look at this thing, it's bigger than me. It could eat you.
Dude, you touched on something so much right there, and that's why I grew up bass fishing. And once I came down here and we started using bait, the size of the biggest bass I had ever caught in Ohio, I was like, I just can't go back to bass fishing. I just can't do it.
That's why, like, growing up, my dad has a boat, which I want to take Kevin out this year, finally fishing, but it's I'm not gonna lie, like I catch a walleye, I'm like, whatever.
Put it back on a hook and throw it out.
Lived in Marathon, Florida, which is like the fishing capital of the world, dude, and you just catch like anything in there. Like, it's incredible how many different kinds of fish you can catch in the ocean, let alone the size of them.
Now, before we hit a break, Mike, I got to ask, like, were there spots up here that you like to frequent? And did you ever, I do have to ask based on my wife and her family, kind of where they're from down in southeastern part of Ohio, they go muskie fishing. Did you ever do any fishing for muskies and hear about the biggest muskie that I guess was ever caught?
Man, I would love to go fishing for muskie. I have never done it before. I've caught chain pickerels, some pretty big ones, which are in the same family as muskie, but they're they look like barracudas, freshwater barracudas. They're as aggressive as freshwater barracudas. Barracuda?
Yeah, they're awesome, and then they stare at you, and they just like you. They look like they're smiling, except for they have teeth that show, and you're like, yeah, please don't bite me. Yeah,
exactly. So I haven't done any muskie fishing, but I want to very much. I think a lot of the same techniques actually carry over for some of the fish that I fish for down here. I see it on some of the. And then my other recommendation, by the way, for new fishermen is YouTube.
Yes.
They have everything that you could ever want on there, and just check out your localized guys making content.
I'd say learning how to tie the proper knots for your stuff on YouTube is a big thing.
Dude, you're killing it, man. I'm telling you, that is right up there. That is like top 3 things that you have to know are quality knots. Like I know knots with names.
So yeah,
you have to know knots with names, not just that granny knot that you just kind of throw together.
I used to do tree removal, so I used to know all these knots and stuff. And then when my friend was fishing, he showed me all these knots. I don't remember a single one of them. Not a one. Not a single one. There was a time I probably knew 100 different knots, and I know none now.
I dream about knots. I mean, I'm telling you, that's how intense it has to be for sure.
You look at pretzels different, don't you?
A little bit. I'm like, that one's tied better than that one. That one looks a little stronger than that one. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I will definitely do my research before even getting the first attempt out there, because I mean,
what we need to do is we need to have our show come down there, and then you come up here for Piedmont, and we'll go on like a muskie fishing trip, and then you could take us tarpon fishing.
I like it, man. That's a good exchange. You did ask a little earlier where the spots are at. I grew up on Lake Cable in Canton, Ohio, and man, I really like going there, or any of the Portage Lake system. And I want you to not be too intimidated by everything I just said. Like, the number one thing I said about fishing is like just going out and doing it and trying it. And just putting a line in the water. You can't catch a fish.
It's addicting, though.
You put a line in the water, for sure.
Very addicting. I've known people have gone once, and then a few years later, I see them again, and next thing you know, they're like, "Oh my God, look at this!" And they got a whole garage full of fishing gear. I'm like, "Well, I think you."
Yeah, and they're broke, and the divorce papers are on the table, and
Yeah. I mean, the best way to learn a lot of things is to go out there and do it. So that's definitely my goal. Like, fishing and golfing are kind of the goal.